You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, the job market unexpectedly reversed its free fall in May as employers brought back millions of workers after the pandemic-induced layoffs. The unemployment rate fell to 13.3% from 14.7% in April, but still remains higher than in any previous post-war recessions. And oh, did Donald Trump run outside real quick to gloat. Job openings remain far below normal, and the story for black unemployment is even more dire. The overall unemployment rate for black folks is 16.8%. For black men, it is 16%. For black women, it's 17.5%. All right, folks, now play the video.
But this is outstanding what's happened today. Now, they thought the number would be a loss of 9 million jobs, and it was a gain of almost 3 million jobs. Nobody's ever seen anything. I think it was incredible in a couple of ways. Number one, the numbers are great, and this leads us on to a long period of growth. We'll go back to having the greatest economy anywhere in the world, nothing close. And I think we're going to have a very good upcoming few months. I think you're going to have a very good August, very good July, but a spectacular, maybe spectacular September, but a spectacular October, November, December, and next year is going to be one of the best years we've ever had economically.
Like I said, Team Trump is just so excited. They sent out this press release touting, saying this is bad news for Joe Biden. They're trying to spin the black numbers. Paris Jannard sent the email out, and I said, dude, it's real. He said, well, they didn't go up in a large number. I said, no, did the black unemployment rate go up? Yes or no? He refused to answer the question. The answer is it did. Joining us right now, Gbenga Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Kristen Broady, dean of the College of Business at Dillard University, and Dr. William Spriggs, economist at Howard University. Bill, we'll start with you. Again, the White House want to do their best to spin these numbers. Can they spin their way out of what this means for black people?
They can't spend their way out of what it means for black people because our unemployment rate went up. I mean, you know, the little silver lining is last month we set a record for the low of the share of black men holding a job. And so we inched up a little bit from that. And black women had fallen below half black women having a job. Now it's a little bit above that. It's at 50%. I mean, that's the best spin they can do. But for the economy as a whole, as you said, we're still at a record level of unemployment. And more importantly, if we do this pace, we're still going to get to November and not have erased the 20 million jobs we lost in March and April, which, by the way, they revised downward. So we actually lost more jobs than what had previously been reported. So this is not the pace to get us back to where we were by November, if that's what he's hoping.
Kristen, they swear things are wonderful. They swear things are great. Again, and look, Donald Trump desperately wants to run on the economy. He wants to give the impression that he's the savior of black people. He tweeted the other day that no president, possibly with the exception of Lincoln, has done more for black people. He keeps touting the number. But here's the problem. The black unemployment rate started going up last year.
So as I look at the numbers, if I go back to May of 2019, for black people, it was 5.9% compared to 3% for white people. That's not a wonderful thing for us. And if you look at March, the number was 6.7%, April 16.7%, and then slightly up to 16.8%. It was going down for others coming from April into May, for everyone except for us. How can that possibly be a wonderful thing for black people, especially for those who are 16 to 19, where the rate is 34.9%. It's only higher for Hispanics at 37.4%. that's not a wonderful thing for us.
Gbenga, bottom line is this here. Again, the White House, they're out there touting, oh, we're going to have an incredible in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. We're going to have huge growth, explosive growth. Should there be drug tests at the White House?
The biggest thing that they're missing is that the whole reason why we're in this mess is that we are in the midst of a public health crisis. And even today, we're still seeing higher cases of COVID. We're seeing higher rates of death. And so we've reopened the economy, and then to think have another break, have a second wave, things like that. If that's going to happen, that's going to tank the economy again. So we can't talk about the second quarter, third quarter, end of the year without talking about the COVID crisis.
But Gbenga, also, again, they keep trying to spin us on just how great and wonderful this is for black folks, as if the black unemployment isn't double that of whites anyway.
And so this is something that we've seen throughout all of history, that through good economies, poor economy, it's always been double the rate. And in fact, the only time it got really low was last month, where it was about 1.2 the rate. But the reason why is because the white rate had gone up so high. And then the other thing that we haven't been talking about is the essential jobs. A lot of these essential jobs are disproportionately African-American, but these are low-paying jobs with no benefits, and they're on the front line of the getting risk of the COVID crisis. And so, but then this month, it actually started to jump back up again from 1.2 to 1.35. So it's actually getting worse for African Americans when you look at it relatively.
And that's the thing that's important, Bill, to understand these numbers. It's very easy to spin numbers any way you want to, but too often, mainstream media is not really focused on what this means for African Americans. And so when Trump says, oh, I'm just doing amazing for black people, folks just run with it as opposed to going under the hood.
Well, right. And the danger in the numbers, we lost another 400,000 jobs in local government. And black people are overrepresented in state and local government. This is another sign that state and local governments don't have enough money to make it to the end of the year. They're making budgets for next year, and because they have to balance their budgets, they're already planning austerity. They're already figuring out how can we cut back so we don't run a deficit next year meaning their next fiscal year, which means this fall. So what we're having is that in the fall, because the Senate Republicans refused to do anything with the House-passed HEROES Act, we're not going to get enough money to state and local governments to protect the investment in state and local infrastructure. And most importantly, these cuts to the infrastructure of education means it's going to be almost impossible to open schools in the fall. And if we don't open schools in the fall, it's going to be impossible to get women back into the labor force.
Kristen, I'm sitting here. Rasmussen just dropped their daily presidential tracking poll shows blacks' likely voter approval of the job Donald Trump is now over 40%. Who the hell are they talking to?
I'm not really sure who the black people are that approve of Donald Trump's job. I can't imagine who they are. Again, looking at the numbers that I'm seeing with these unemployment rates, I can't imagine who they are. It's no one that I know. I can't imagine.
Gbenga, this is what jumps out again. He kept talking at today's news conference about the greatest thing for black folks is the economy. Folks, do y'all have that clip where he was even asked about it? If y'all have it, let me know so we can play it. But Gbenga, it's again, Donald Trump has this idea that because the stock market is doing great, things are wonderful for black people. Does he pay any attention to the home ownership rate? Is he paying any attention to the wealth inequality gap? And he stood up there today touting what he's done for HBCUs. But isn't the fact also that a black college graduate is still making less than a white high school graduate?
It is. We see so many disparities across the education scale, and there's so many reasons why, we haven't even started to talk about wealth and the wealth gap and how that's gotten worse. And also how from the Great Recession, African Americans have not been able to recover. It took 11 years for unemployment rates to drop to 5.5%, as Dr. Broady was mentioning. And it's one of those things where at every level, there's always going to be disparities, and disparities don't close. And so when he talks about this, the great for African Americans, he's just I don't want to use this phrase, but he's lying. I'll just leave it at that. He's lying.
Gbenga, understand, this ain't mainstream media. We can say lie. Well, and so the problem is, here's why we got to go ahead and say it. Because misrepresents, misstating. No, lying is lying. When you're making it up, you're making it up. And so I was one of the first folks on mainstream to say he was a liar. Everybody else is trying to dance around it. No, liar's a liar.
Definitely. But I'll let you say something.
Hold on, Kristen, 1 second. Gbenga, then Kristen, go ahead.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say something worse than that. But the problem is that he's talking nonsense. And that's a problem that the media runs with it, that it doesn't make any sense and that none of the numbers are good. Even if we don't even talk about African Americans, 13.3% unemployment is something that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. That's a horrible number. Nothing to celebrate.
And he literally stood there today and said, matter of fact, Kristen, before you go, play what he said about HBCUs. Go ahead.
Vulnerable areas of America is going to be my focus. It's going to be a big focus because it's taking care of itself, but we have to help that very vulnerable area. They're vulnerable. It's not right, and we're helping them, and we have helped them in the past, and we're also to opportunity zones, criminal justice reform. Nobody's ever done for the black community what President Trump has done. Think of it. Historically, black small colleges and universities, they would come here for money every year for many, many years. After 3 years, I said, why are you doing this? Why do you keep coming here? They said, because we come. I said, don't you get a long-term deal so you don't have to come? The head of one of the very respected colleges looked at me and said, sir, we're like beggars. Every year we have to come to Washington and beg for money. I said, you should have a long-term deal. And we signed a long-term deal so they don't have to come. I'll miss them. I told him, I'll miss them. I got to know them. But the first year, I didn't think anything of it. The second year, I said, that's strange. Why are you here? And then the third year, not so long ago, the same people, the heads of the historically black small colleges and universities, 44 people, maybe a little more than that, a little less than that sometimes. But after 3 years, I said, what are you doing? They said, the past administration did nothing for us. The administration before that did nothing for that. So I'm going to do it. So we did the opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott, who's been fantastic. And by the way, it's one of the great unknowns because the opportunity zones, you don't talk about it. It's one of the most incredible success stories ever in terms of the inner cities and in terms of black and Hispanic and Asian unemployment. Opportunity zones, you ought to do some stories about opportunity zones. Billions and billions of dollars of private money are being invested in putting people to work and getting money that they've never made before. So it's been really a terrific thing.
I think the appropriate phrase, Kristen, is called, that's that bullshit right there.
So I just want to say that on March 27th, President Trump did sign into law the CARES Act, which provided $2 trillion. Of that, $14.3 billion went to higher education, 10% of that to HBCUs. So I will say that. But at the same time, you have to think about what the discrepancy is. And when you think about the fact that 75.4% of first-time, full-time undergraduates at HBCUs were awarded Pell Grants versus 43.2% at PWI, right? So that's a measure of income inequality. And so more is definitely needed, right? I will admit that, yes, he did give the money, but certainly more is needed.
Well, let's just be clear, Bill. Congress passed the bill. He signed it.
Thank you. The credit goes to Congressman Bobby Scott, who chairs the House Ed and Labor Committee. And yes, he agreed to sign it. That's what happened here.
And so when you hear him also, Bill, stand there and talk about, opportunity zones, I'm still trying to wait for the data to show what that has actually done. I haven't seen anything. You?
It's like his claims about drugs that can cure COVID. And, he says he takes one of them. So, I mean, we rarely see true positive outcomes from that type of experiment because you're sort of moving the chess pieces around to avoid paying taxes. And so it's very hard to find meaningful outcomes from that.
And Gbenga, he said, the problem is just going to fix itself.
No, the reason why we have good numbers now is because of the CARES Act and because of all the lobbying and the work by activists and think tank people and policymakers. But I want to go back to the point about opportunity zones because I've been writing about them for the last 2 years. And so what he said made no sense because the program is actually not in place yet. That it doesn't actually really start until 2021. So there's no way that it can actually be working or anything like that. But the other problem is this is money going to rich people because you have to have capital gains to invest in places. And so he talked about inner cities, but there's a lot of disadvantaged communities and rural communities all throughout. And so we just, again, talking nonsense.
And that's why we call them out. Folks, I appreciate it. I don't think there's been a time on mainstream media where 3 black economists were all together talking at the same time. That's what happens when you own your own show. Folks, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Roland.
Roland.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. Thank the folks with Ceek.com, Ceek.com for partnering with us. This is Mary Spio is the creator, the innovator, the founder of this company. She, of course, designed these 4D 360-degree headphones that are absolutely amazing. We've got a partnership with them, folks. If you purchase these headphones, you can use the promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. Simply go to Ceek.com. That's Ceek.com. Be sure to check it out. We thank them for partnering with us.